Hello everyone. I want to share a couple additional insights about the energy that we're in right now leading to this eclipse on the 14th. This is something that I feel it really points to the elusiveness and the trickiness of consciousness and the mind. So let's start with looking at the idea of a problem. What is a problem? So we all have problems, right? Problem with a relationship, something in our life that we can't figure out. It causes stress, a sense of discomfort. I would define a problem as any time where the mind is perceiving a reality where it elicits a state of being contrary to wellness, contrary to a sense of peace. So a problem in a sense points to this intuitive knowing that peace and non-conflict is the natural state, and from within that a problem emerges. A problem is like, oh, here's something that is not in harmony with what's meant to be, with this natural state of being. So when a problem emerges, we all have our different ways of dealing with that problem, and this is where it's elusive, right? So you can have a problem with how someone treated you. They said something to you, and maybe they said, you know, you're ugly. And so what's the problem? Well, how do you feel? Right? You feel hurt. You feel betrayed, maybe. You don't feel you can really open up to this person doesn't feel safe anymore. You feel uncomfortable around them. There's all this stuff going on around you. Now, the mind will kind of logically order this entire experience according to what it's able to comprehend, like how it's able to reconcile with this slight trauma of life not being in harmony. And I say it that way because for all of us, it's a shock to our nervous system. It's a little bit disillusioning anytime life brings up for us something that points to unwellness, non-harmony, non-peace, conflict. And this is why it's such a big deal. The smallest things are a big deal to babies, to children. So we're very used to problems, but there's a subtle trauma in it. And a consciousness is sort of thrown back upon itself. How do I deal with this? This is not love. This is not truth. This is not togetherness. This is not wholeness. So the mind will, almost by necessity, need to move in some kind of direction so it can categorize the experience. So when non-truth arises in a field of truth, it's almost like if we can sequester the non-truth and say, okay, this is not true. This is unreal. This is not love. This is not safety. This is not trustworthy. This is not friend. And I can kind of put it here so we can protect the purity of everything else and feel secure in having sequestered something that's sort of in the way of it. So that's one way of dealing with the perception of problem. And then there's a sense of peace because, well, I've decided this person is this. We have these qualities that we ascribe to this person, and thus we're able to, in a way, protect our sense of wellness and peace and balance. Because there's some sort of intellectual cohesion that sequesters, right? It's in the same way where there can be bad guys in the world and good guys in the world. There are some people that just want to hurt you, that are bad, that have selfish motives, and you can't trust them. And that story, the simplified version of that, I mean, it's almost like this archetypal thing. We love that. We love being able to, on a certain level of consciousness, there's a collective conditioning to simplify good and bad. And being able to recognize the bad says, okay, well, you know, these elements of life, my personal life and collective life in the world, it's bad. And just put it in a box and put it out there. And so there's no empathy, there's no connection, there's no intimacy, there's no compassion, there's no understanding. It's just, sequester it. In Martin Buber language, it's making something an it, not a thou, right? You're an it. Another way that we deal with problems, and this is just on a different level of operating, would be to get curious about our own state of perception. And so there's a problem that arises, but then what is the problem, right? To become a little more curious. Is the problem this person acted a certain way and thus I feel this way? So causative, external reality causing something in me. Or is the problem really more rooted in a state of perception? So, a child can come to me and say, you're ugly. And where's the problem? Will I feel offended? Maybe, maybe not. It might be perhaps less likely if a child did that than someone that I trust and care about to, treat me a certain way or speak to me a certain way. And so where's the problem there? Maybe I wouldn't see a problem. Maybe it would be more of here is a child acting in a way that expresses some sort of distress in their own mind. And as an adult, I might find more compassion or curiosity about that. Perhaps the problem would be with the frustration that a child's acting that way and wanting to control. Like, you can't do that. You can't talk to people that way. So whatever I'm identifying as the problem will always elicit the strategy I employ to solve the problem. So if I'm perceiving a child that is being rude and inappropriate, maybe I'm not offended, but I'm seeing inappropriate and rude, then I'm going to solve the inappropriate and rude accordingly. I'll language a certain way, I'll speak a certain way, I'll communicate with them a certain way. Let's get out of the sun. Okay, this will give us a few minutes until it rises a little more. But if I'm seeing in more of an innocent state, this sense of, there's something happening in this child's mind, or I can sense maybe irritation or fear, then perhaps I would approach in more of a gentle, why did you say that? What were you thinking? What were you feeling that you said that? Are you angry? You want to talk to me? Something like that. And really, I can go on and on and on because there's no one way to respond or to strategize or address a problem, because our perceptions of all things are quite infinite. The ways in which we're going to perceive all things are pretty much as diverse as our own individual soul journey, and how our minds are just wired to see things differently. And the main point that I want to offer in this is there's no objective truth to how we are perceiving things. And yet, relative to the need for security, continuity, and just sort of the trick of consciousness, there's going to be this very real lived sense of logical cohesion to what we do perceive, and thus how we respond to it is going to make a lot of sense. It's just logic. If we're perceiving a premise, the way that we relate to that premise will follow that premise. But to another person that's working on a different premise, there's going to be a completely different relationship. And so coming to the idea of Neptune speaks to this in part because Neptune corresponds to the neutrality of truth and the universality of what is real, of reality. And reality will never say, this is the right way to look at things, this is the right way to perceive things, right? It's just what it is. Like the truth of safety, the truth of oneness, the truth of love, the truth of unity, the truth of no separation, the truth of wholeness, the truth of wellness is inherent. So we can say that's Neptune. It's just the capital truth. It's love. It's the starting point, it's the ending point, it's the middle. And then we have this experience, and this is where the spiritual trauma kind of sets in. I'm experiencing something that is contrary to a deep inner knowing of what is true. So I have to fix that. And this is where the Gemini-Sagittarius axis comes in. This axis basically says, Sagittarius, we're going to interpret reality in a way that reflects how we're at this moment, the degree to which we're capable of understanding the truth, like the level to which, the degree to which we're capable of apprehending more of the truth. So our interpretation may not be wrong, it's not complete. We're going to have elements of it. And the issue with Sagittarius is we'll possibly set up shop at the impartial understanding. So we'll have elements of it, but the more we open to love, to what's fundamentally true, which means like the truth of safety and wholeness, our interpretation's going to expand likewise. And so we can interpret something and, be like, oh, this person, had, saw something on TV, this child saw something on TV, and this is just an opportunity to, sit with them, to love them, to ask them what they were feeling. There's a certain perspective here, and that perspective, that interpretation isn't making things personal. Or your friend said something mean to you. There can be interpretation here that's like not actually about you don't like, that's an interpretation. It can be any number of things, right? And our interpretation really just reflects the worldview that we hold inside of ourselves. And so the events and the things that happen in life are always just, there's a teaching in A Course in Miracles that events are not objective, they're reflections. I just think that's happened. Like what we perceive is a mirror. This is not an exact quote, but it's something like what we perceive as a mirror back to us, and what we interpret itself is just our own mind projecting itself out and then saying this is what is there, but it's actually that's what's in here. So another Sagittarius interpretation could be, this person is bad, is unworthy of my trust, of my love, my affection, or this child needs to be punished. And so then the Gemini mind steps in and kind of orchestrates all the languaging and the communication and the details. Like the Gemini function is where we will classify things. So we'll say, you're a bad person, or you just need more love. We're going to use our mind and give classifications to things according to how we are intuitively interpreting that which arises. But as the waters of truth come into our mind, as we deepen our study, our attunement, our surrender, our practice of unconditional love, and learning what that is, the Gemini-Sag axis follows suit. We're going to interpret things differently, and thus we're going to communicate and relate to things and categorize things differently. So this eclipse, and this window, this whole month really, has been about this strong Gemini-Sag-Pisces axis. And the eclipse is happening in Gemini-Sag, squaring Neptune in Pisces. And this eclipse is really, this next one, on the 14th, is focalizing on the south node in Sagittarius, very tightly squaring Neptune. And so part of what's emerging right now is a sense of two things. One, the Gemini-Sag axis really does speak to, you take me where you want me to go. We move, we migrate, we journey through life, whatever planet we go to, whatever country we're in, wherever we're at. The phases and the journeys of life are very mutable. The journey of the soul on any level is just this ongoing process of experiencing such a diversity of experience. And these are all ways in which we're learning to come home to ourselves, in which we are remembering. And so there's an inherent quality to the Gemini-Sag axis that says there's a lot of spontaneity and freedom and possibilities here, keeping very fluid to the journey, to the discovery that will continue to emerge. But the belief systems and the ideas that we have can easily get in the way of, it's not even get in the way, it's like, it sort of shapes the contours of the journey. Like the journey isn't trying to be this, I'm trying to take you here to here. The trick of the journey is that the journey is taking us from here to here. It's always showing us ourself. And so wherever we go, whatever form, whatever expression life is appearing, wherever we're guided, wherever we're finding ourselves geographically, relationally, the journey is the same. Right? The journey is the same. Everything is reflecting the truth back to ourselves and where we are in relationship to truth. Capital T. And that's Neptune. So the second piece here is we may not have, on the one hand, a clear sense of what's going on, where we're going, or we might have a really strong sense of it. The practice I feel right now is cultivating a mindset of gratitude and trust, just in the recognition that perhaps at the core of everything, of all of our life experiences, there is safety and there is peace and there is wellness. And this can become another delusion. This can be a Sagittarius belief system, right? It kind of taking things in, and it's like, oh, there's peace and love, and then not dealing with emotions or hurt. It's like covering up the perception of a problem by jumping and skipping into, oh, there's no problem, and that creates a skipped step. That creates an unresolved dilemma, which will repeat itself and come back at some point until we can actually embrace, there's this important teaching. We have to notice the illusion, really meet it with honesty, with transparency, before it can fall away. We have to acknowledge and meet our false perceptions and not say this is false. We have to actually let ourselves feel it. Notice it's there. Notice our hurt, our anger, our distrust, our jadedness, our fear, the sense of unsafety. In meeting all of that, it allows us to just let it arise in consciousness, and sort of with the curiosity and humility of, okay, this is reflecting how I'm seeing. This is reflecting a mechanism within my own consciousness, how I'm interpreting and thus categorizing reality, and thus pointing back to my essential relationship to truth, to love. And so the potential within these signatures ultimately is to realign our attention, our orientation back to what is essential. And this will also happen in our own way, because the Sagittarius Gemini axis says our way of knowing the Tao, our way of remembering and coming to surrender to and remember what is essentially true about ourselves in life, that's going to happen in its own way through our own cultural filter, our own experience, the way in which our minds have been shaped. So Pisces is that love can be remembered through any particular way, any teacher, any practice, any spiritual tradition, right? So our own way, according to our own nature, ultimately, we're going to find in every moment, embedded in every moment, the path of return. So this time really offers the blessing and the opportunity to practice, not getting it right? Just to practice every experience. And this is a Pisces teaching. It doesn't matter how far we've gone or, how much drama we've created in our mind. We get to start over again because the truth doesn't go away. So we get to embrace every experience really as an ongoing opportunity to cultivate that curiosity and that realignment with truth, right? Is what I am perceiving working? Does this kind of harmonize with a deep sense of peace? And the trickiness is great because it's easy to kind of sequester things and thus create a sense of peace that's very conditional. So it takes a lot of honesty, and we get to practice that, which is wonderful. So I want everyone to know that I am launching the Essentials course, January 10th. This is the Heart and Soul Centered Astrology Training Program. This is an opportunity to study very deeply with me. If you resonate with these teachings and feel called to study astrology through solid guidance, but rooted in a soul level perspective of understanding, this is an opportunity to do so. You can learn more about this course in the link below, and definitely feel free to ask me any questions if you want to learn more or just explore if this is right for you. All right, much love to you all.